Someone asks you for something, a favor, a commitment, extra time, extra energy, something that, if you're honest, you don't have right now. You feel it immediately. That quiet internal contraction, the part of you that already knows the answer should be no. And then, almost before that knowing has finished forming, something else moves in. A rapid, practiced calculation that happens so fast it barely registers as thought. You consider their face if you refuse. You consider the awkwardness, the potential disappointment, the version of this interaction that ends with them feeling let down and you feeling responsible for it. And by the time you open your mouth, the answer is already yes. Warm, willing, completely convincing, even to yourself sometimes. You walk away having agreed to something you didn't want to do, and the feeling that follows is familiar enough that you barely notice it anymore. A low, quiet heaviness, not quite resentment, not quite regret. Something more like the sensation of having been slightly erased. This happens more than occasionally. It happens consistently, across contexts, with people you love and people you barely know. The colleague who always needs one more thing. The friend whose crises seem to arrive precisely when yours are beginning. The family member who has learned, with remarkable accuracy, exactly how much they can ask. You say yes to all of them. You say yes, and then you manage the consequences. The overextended schedule, the neglected personal needs, the particular exhaustion of someone who is always available to everyone except themselves. And if someone were to ask you why, really ask, pressing past the polite surface of it, you would probably say something about not wanting to hurt people, about caring too much, about just being that kind of person. But caring is only part of it, and the part underneath the caring is worth understanding. The inability to say no almost never begins as a character trait. It begins as a survival strategy. In the environments that first taught you how relationships work, saying no likely carried a cost that said yes did not. Maybe the cost was visible. Conflict, withdrawal, the particular coldness of someone who communicated their displeasure in ways that filled the room. Maybe it was subtler, a shift in warmth, a faint but perceptible change in how loved you felt depending on how accommodating you were. You learned to read these signals with extraordinary precision because your sense of safety in the relationship depended on it. And you learned that your needs, your limits, your quiet internal no, these were negotiable. What was not negotiable was keeping the other person okay. Psychologists call this fawn response, a less discussed cousin of fight, flight, and freeze. It is the nervous system's adaptation to environments where appeasement was the safest strategy, where keeping others comfortable was more reliably protective than asserting your own needs, where being needed, being agreeable, being the person who never causes difficulty, these were the behaviors that kept you emotionally safe. The fawn response is not weakness, and it is not people-pleasing in the shallow sense. It is intelligence. It is the deeply learned understanding that your relational security depends on your usefulness, your agreeableness, your willingness to make space for everyone else's needs before your own. The problem, as with all strategies built for one environment, is that it travels. It leaves the situations that created it and installs itself into every relationship, every interaction, every request that comes your way. Long after the original threat is gone, the reflex remains. Someone asks something of you, and your nervous system responds not to this person in this moment, but to the accumulated emotional history of what happened the last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, when the answer was no. The body doesn't know the threat has changed, so it keeps protecting you from a danger that may no longer exist. There is also something more conscious running alongside the reflex, a story you tell yourself about what a no means, about you, about the relationship, about the kind of person you are. Saying no in this story is selfish. It is unkind. It is the choice of someone who doesn't care enough, who isn't generous enough, who puts herself above the people she loves. And you care deeply. You are generous. So you say yes, because the alternative in this story is becoming someone you don't want to be. What this story never accounts for is what the yes actually costs. Not just in time or energy, though those costs are real and they accumulate, but in something more fundamental. Every time you say yes when your honest answer is no, you create a small fracture between what you feel and what you express. A small untruth that lives in the body as tension, as resentment, as the faint but persistent sensation of not being quite real in the interaction. Multiply this across months and years, and the fracture becomes a distance between yourself and your own needs that can grow wide enough that you stop being able to locate what you actually want. You know what everyone else wants. You're exquisitely sensitive to it, but ask you what you need, and there is a pause, a blankness, a reaching for an answer that somehow keeps not arriving. This is one of the quietest losses of a life built on yes. Not that the people around you take too much, though sometimes they do, but that you lose gradually your own legibility to yourself. You become so practiced at translating your needs into other people's comfort that you eventually stop hearing your own signal clearly. And then there is the anger, because it does come, eventually, even in the most endlessly patient women. It doesn't usually arrive loudly. It arrives as a thought you feel ashamed of. Why does everyone always ask this of me? It arrives as a tiredness that seems disproportionate to the circumstances. It arrives as a moment of inexplicable irritation towards someone you genuinely love for asking something perfectly reasonable of someone who always says yes. The anger is not irrational. It is information. It is your system registering clearly and without ambiguity that the balance has been wrong for a long time and something in you knows it, even when the rest of you is still busy being accommodating. The path toward no is not about becoming a different person. It does not require you to stop caring about the people around you or to dismantle the generosity that is genuinely part of who you are. It asks something more precise than that. It asks you to separate two things that have been fused for so long they feel like the same thing: your care for others and your fear of what happens if they experience your limits. These are not the same thing. You can care deeply about someone and still be unable to give them what they're asking for right now. You can love someone and decline their request and have both things be true simultaneously. A no is not a withdrawal of love. It is information about your actual capacity. And people who genuinely love you, not people who love what you do for them, but people who love you, can receive that information without it ending something. The first no is the hardest, not because of what it produces on the outside, which is usually far less catastrophic than you've imagined, but because of what it requires on the inside. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of someone else's disappointment without immediately moving to resolve it, to feel the familiar pull of the old reflex and choose, for this one moment, not to follow it, to locate your own need, the genuine, honest, this is too much right now, and let it be more authoritative than the fear of what the other person will feel. That moment is uncomfortable, genuinely uncomfortable. It was designed to be by years of learning that this discomfort is dangerous, but the discomfort is not danger. It is just discomfort, and it passes. And on the other side of it is something that a life built entirely on yes can never fully provide: the quiet, solid knowledge that your words and your feelings are actually aligned, that what you said is what you meant, that you are present in your own life rather than managing everyone else's. You have given so much of yourself to keeping other people comfortable in your presence. You have smoothed edges, absorbed tension, stayed longer, and given more and held your own needs at arm's length with a patience that is genuinely extraordinary. But you are not a resource. You are a person with limits that are not failures, with needs that are not inconveniences, with an inner life that deserves to be heard first, by you before anyone else. The no you've been swallowing for years is not cruelty waiting to happen. It is the beginning of being real.